Hey everyone, and welcome back to Raising NA. It's us, it's ya boys. We got myself, Smex, we got Cubby, we got Rafa. We're all here to talk about Scouting Grounds 2021. It's coming up super fast. I think the games start tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow is when the games begin. So we'll find out who's on each team tomorrow. We don't know yet.
Potentially.
We will.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll find out like each team's. Last year they didn't release the draft. But I don't think the draft matters a ton, but sometimes find it interesting. And speaking of draft, there's actually no draft this year. So they did cancel the draft. A little bit of a different format, and we're gonna start there. But beforehand, a little bit of catch up for the show because it's been a while since we sat down. Of course, Proving Grounds did wrap up over a month ago. But you guys have been doing a lot of Wild Rift stuff. I'm glad I could pull you back in for, get you out of your phones and back into the PC,
Oh, yeah. Oh, those damn phones are Cubby's old man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Smax did hit diamond on his phone today.
Yeah, I did.
And grinding Wild
right here
Rift.
on this
So
phone.
now he's in the LP system for Wild Rift. So
Yeah,
I
pretty
think
cool
that
stuff.
puts Smax within the top 1,000 players right now. I don't know how many
Really?
people are in
I have
it.
no idea. I don't know what that stat is.
Isn't there like an emerald tier? Is that above or below?
Yeah,
Below.
Diamond.
That's just below diamond.
Okay.
So emerald is basically
is there a tier above diamond?
For
Masters,
It's Master,
Grandmasters,
Grandmaster.
Okay.
and Challenger.
Okay.
But the way you want to think about Diamond and
So like
Wild Rift
top
is,
1%, top 2%.
Yeah,
around there,
it's
I think,
like
Pretty cool.
Diamond is actually like if we
Like
put
D2.
T2 and D1 from League of Legends and just like made its own tier that started the LP system.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I just got there for the first time. I've only played, I think it was 90 games in this season, so not too bad.
He's piss smurfing.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well in that game, and
Nice.
Mark's pretty close behind. We've been doing it. We've been duoing for most of it. Although today I duoed with TJ, so that was pretty cool.
Nice.
I should have been abusing the duo system with Smax more.
There's still time. There's still time to do this.
I feel like now that you're in Diamond, it's making the enemies and the opponents harder than it's worth.
We get Rafa good practice. That's what we do.
We did have a Grandmaster jungler in one of our games today, so maybe we might be right.
So like
that's pretty sweet.
Here's the thing.
Also, somebody recognized us, which was even more cool. They were like, "Oh, is that the goat? The goats, Smax and TJ?" We were like, "Yeah,
nice.
Hello."
The thing about the Wild Rift ranking system is that there's only LP once you get to Diamond, but before that, there's these things called nodes, and it doesn't matter how well you perform, how poorly you perform. It is if you win, you get a node, and then it's if you lose a node. So even if you maintain like a close to 50% win rate, and the theory behind that is like, well, if I'm above 52% win or 50% win rate, even if it's 51, eventually you'll climb. But it takes fucking forever because you can go on win streaks and then lose streaks, and then you could like just win, lose, and you won't like eventually like go up. It's because you're not going like plus 19, minus 15, and then getting a net 4 positive. It's just you ended up in the same place. So
interesting. Okay. That's like a weird way to work hidden MMR, but at least it's like more like you can like actually kind of calculate your hidden MMR then, like if it's just by wins loss, like plus minus. So that's kind of interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that said, we've got couple things to take care of before we hop into Scouting Grounds. First off, we have to cover the changes that happened with Scouting Grounds this year. So no draft, same amount of players taken, but just instead of Scouting Grounds qualifiers or the Face It Scouting Grounds system, just from Proving Grounds. And also Gamsu and Chad, because they were still on amateur contracts, they won with 100 Thieves Academy, of course. They qualify in. So those are two players that we're going to see. Any comments, anything like that to cover the questions? You guys just want to dive right into, kind of previewing who's going to be there?
the other change, which is actually exclusively due to Rebel Fox, because of how hard he worked last year. He, I don't know. We didn't get to do that again. So the only broadcast day for Scouting Grounds is the last day. So that is a change.
I think so. Riot hasn't announced anything.
Dean,
yeah.
By the way, I'm congratulating Dean on how hard he worked last year.
Because he basically got us a gift to do the days throughout. But it is. I did League Day with Emily Rand Kangas and Kelsey, and Emily on League Day said that she's going to be on the desk for the Scouting Grounds podcast, and it's just the one last day of the event.
Okay, so that's the only. So they haven't announced that yet, but that's going to be the only day they broadcast.
Yes,
that's a bit of a bummer. So a lot of League of Legends going on right now. I know that today a lot of the players, even the ones in the chat, are currently sitting through workshops. So go back and focus on those if you are a player.
Go do your homework.
This VOD will be up, but yeah, it's a bummer not seeing more of that event. However, that final day, and kind of going over a lot of those talents, definitely something that's a big opportunity for all these players to get their faces in front of, for a lot of them, or some of them, the 9 other LCS orgs, or for everyone, all 10 LCS orgs, as their staffs are there. They get coaching throughout the weeks. They play in-houses. A lot of people familiar with the amateur scene are familiar with Scouting Grounds. People that may not be familiar with it, that's what happens, right? They split them up. They do scrims. They do games. There is a winner. There is a loser. There's a top 3 Honda players at the end of the tournament that are going to be voted on. And yeah,
that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see how that one ends up working out. The new MVP system, I guess. You said there are 3 of them, right?
Yeah, so they take the 3 top performers is how they're going to do rewards at the end of the week.
Pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's I guess the reward that the players get to have, but I think the really
maybe getting signed.
Yeah, also potentially getting exposure to the 10 orgs. But I think the more interesting thing is to talk about the players that are going to be there, because everyone in some way or another did have to earn their spot to compete in Scouting Grounds and be one of the 20 players or 21 players that will be in attendance. And that actually might be a good place to start. There is going to be one player that will be there that will only be attending all the meetings and everything behind the scenes and have all the exposure, but will not be competing. That player would, of course, be XU. If you guys missed it, there was an erroneous invite sent out by Riot that went to 2 players. Only one could compete. So Calm Annabellum, also known as Uncle Jamal on the ladder, will be competing. XU, who spent the year on Cloud9 Amateur, will not. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. But I guess that gets us down to 20 players. So yeah, I don't know. XU showed a lot this year. Good that he gets to sit in all those meetings, but kind of a bummer that just how things went down there. Yeah. So yeah, do you guys want to start up top?
Yeah, let's do top. So
PCL.
The 4 players. We got PCL. We got Dragoon, Concept, and Gamsu.
Correct.
The first and the last of those qualified from Proving Grounds, and then the other 2 played in Proving Grounds this year, but actually qualified from the ladder. So best of both worlds, I guess, for them. Yeah, pretty cool list of players. I think the initial thing that we've been talking about for most of the year for top lane is that we haven't been incredibly impressed by a lot of the top laners that are very fresh faces. And specifically for this year, I think the freshest face for this is going to be Concept, right? Because he didn't play last year, which Dragoon did, and then before that as well, Gamsu, of course, worldwide player, and then PCL has gone to Scouting Grounds before.
Twice.
I think we should start with Concept because he is the freshest boy that we have up in top. I'm pretty excited to see him play.
I get to cheat. I've got a lot of notes.
I haven't been super impressed by top overall in amateur NA this year, but he's been one of the shining lights for me. I think.
Concept.
I was impressed by Concept. Yeah, actually.
Yeah. So for people going into Scouting Grounds that aren't familiar with Concept, in the spring he competed on Revival. That was a team that was actually a really fun dark horse. Like,
yeah,
they played crazy shit. They beat some good teams. They made it to the finals of the second tier 2. Notice how I did not mention what the tournament was.
nice stuff. Nice job.
I know. Yeah, that's doing. There's one rule on this podcast. We're sticking with it. It's a year later. Sometimes the same joke works out. Also peaked at 1,427 LP this year, which it's a ELO inflated year, but that's still pretty impressive. Like, that's very high up on the ladder. And is currently competing in UPL on AoE Cope, where they've only dropped one game, and that's the roster, I believe, with Sheeden.
Yes, yeah. So that's actually, that roster is why I've been so impressed with him, is because of what he's been doing on that team in like the other leagues, and also they played in like a pickup thing that Nerd Street did.
Yeah, you guys were on that one. They won the whole thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was on that with DJ, and then
Got it.
They won that tournament after playing against Supernova and Maryville. They beat them both. And that team had Concept, Sheeden, Captain Shrimps, and then their bot lane. I don't actually remember who their bot lane was. But those three players stood out to me a lot, specifically mid jungle. But I think Concept held his own really well up there too. And yeah, I'm impressed by this guy a lot. I think the biggest champion that people would know him from is probably his Gangplank.
No, man, Singed.
And other, like, Renekton's and stuff.
The Singed.
Well, okay. The Singed as well.
The Singed. I am a fan of the Singed.
That goes to my boy Keyshawn, aka Dragoon. He's the Gangplank.
I don't know what their bot lane was.
And Darius. Darius is for him.
By the way, I don't know what their bot lane was in that tournament, but their bot lane currently is Eno and Duo King.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what it was.
Okay.
It was those two guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cubby, I think your stream is dead. Never mind. It's back.
It's sometimes internet here in the Midwest can be a pain in the ass, but you know, we're working on it. Yeah. So stream should be resetting here rather soon, but the recording is still going, so we'll keep on plowing into this info. Concept. So something I kind of wanted to run by you guys is, I think for every player, maybe saying something that we think is like good or a strength of theirs, and then something that if they showed it at Scouting Grounds would help them, or we think would be a good sign of growth from them. So I'm kind of curious if you guys have any for Concept. If not, I can take them, but I think Concept's an interesting one because his champ pool is like, it's pretty much like Tanks and Camille. Like, from what we saw early in the spring when he was playing like Maokai, he was still playing Singed, he was playing Scion.
Renekton. He played Renekton too, but everyone was playing that.
Yeah. So it's, he can kind of play both, but like the better performances I actually saw him on when he was on Tanks, which I think for like a young player in solo queue was actually like pretty good. That was surprising to me.
Yeah, you don't see many top laners in solo queue dropping ego.
Yeah, and well, I mean the guy in solo queue plays like Singed Urgot, so yeah. I think that now that he's been like kind of picking up other champs, I'm not sure if like he's still like very high up on the ladder, but I'm honestly like really curious to see how he does on something like Jax, where I haven't seen him play that competitively yet, or like a Fiora or an Aurelia. And I think if he's able to show up on that, it's really good. But also, like, I think this guy's not afraid to play anything in the top lane, and I expect some weird picks from him, and I also can see him doing well on those picks.
Yeah, I think that point is really true. Like he's got a pretty deep champion pool.
It's very deep. Like, compared to the rest of the top laners, I feel like they're kind of, Gamsu and Concept have deeper pools, or have shown deeper pools competitively than their counterparts.
I think that's true.
So yeah, Concept at not as high of a level as the other guys because he's hasn't participated in Proving Grounds in the summer, but I think that's still something to look out for. I think that he's going to be pretty confident playing anything.
Yeah.
I will
think
say this.
The split pushers are really hard to put together in like a very fresh team, like to each other, you know? Like if he's playing with 4 players he's never played with before, it's really hard to do split push stuff. But I agree with like other champions as well. It's just like Fiora is really hard to play well in like a team environment.
I'm going to have a bold take here. I think we can, for Concept's sake and everyone's sake that are fans of Concept, he will not end up like Gibble and be forgotten after Scouting Grounds.
No, man. You don't have to do Gibble like that.
Oh man, that's tough. I think Concept is a little bit more motivated to play competitively than Gibble was after Scouting Grounds.
Yeah. Oh.
All love for Gibble. Just it's kind of what happened. Gibble got put on the team of every player was brought up as weak side in Gibble, Iconic, APA, Spawn, and Plux?
Yeah, Plux is on that one. Yeah.
Everyone was used to being the one that didn't get resources, and then it's like, wait, who's getting resources on this team? And Gibble's like, well, it's definitely not me, guys. It's definitely not me. And then we never heard from Gibble again, which is,
you know what? You're right. Concept will. I think Cubby's got it. The mantra here very nicely. He's got a lot of motivation, so I'm excited for Concept. I think this is. I think he's going to surprise.
Will not end up like Gibble. It's okay. It's already a W.
Yeah. Also, I'm not sure. I think he's going by Concept X at this event. I'm not sure.
Concept X.
Because he has been Concept of X, Concept X now. I don't know. But whatever he decides on, I think Concept's like an interesting young player, and it definitely is a role where the sentiment from orgs is that there isn't a lot of talented people playing in that role. So I think anyone that, and in fact, the other sentiment from orgs is that the most talented top laners that are up and coming are not here at Scouting Grounds and are elsewhere. So I think any top laner that shows up puts up a really good performance here that'd be good.
I agree.
So yeah. Moving on. Rafa, who do you want to do next?
Dragoon.
All right, Dragoon. So tell us a bit about Dragoon.
Well, Dragoon was a majority this year on the Mirage and then eventually Dignitas Mirage roster. Now, the Dignitas Mirage roster got into Proving Grounds as the, I think, 16th seed through Last Chance Qualifier, or if I'm not mistaken. The Dignitas Mirage roster itself was not amazing. It wasn't near any of the stronger half of the amateur teams. That being said, they did well enough to get in, and I know that a lot of the focus was put on that roster for Meech, because Meech was genuinely a very strong bot laner, and I think had he not done stupid boosting shit, I think we could have seen Meech at this tournament. That being said, even though Meech was one of the better parts of Dignitas Mirage, I think Dragoon is underrated on that roster. And while I can agree that maybe top lane is not the strongest pool compared to other roles in amateur, I think Dragoon has a lot of potential, and you put him on any of his signature picks, and I think he's always going to be a presence that you have to respect going into it. and I think his work ethic is really respectable as well.
So
Yeah.
Dragoon definitely made a name for himself on Darius, Gangplank, and Mordekaiser in the spring.
Yep.
He played those 3 champs to great success. Right now on the ladder, his most played, I believe, are Set, Camille, Darius still.
He's really good at set, yeah.
And I think that he, like, as a player for me, from what we've seen from him competitively, this guy was just left to the wolves on his team. Like,
Yes.
it was about playing around mid jungle, getting counterpick for DNA, and trying to go from there. I think that Dragoon, therefore, in summer didn't look great. And I think a part of that was
weak side on a revolving door bot lane team is a really, really shitty hand.
Yeah. It is. And I think a part of that, like there are games that Dragoon kind of, did a good PCL impression and like did play weak side very well. But I think there were also games where he messed up and he was victim of some pretty brutal counter picks in Proving Grounds that really got the best of him in the top lane. And so the one thing I'm looking for Dragoon, or like looking from, like for Dragoon, is if he puts up like a good performance on like a Kennen or anyone outside his champ pool, I feel like he has the most defined champion pool coming in here out of all the top laners. And if he's able to show that he can like put up really good stuff outside of that, I think that's great for Dragoon. Strengths of his, if he gets Set, Darius, Gangplank in a good game for those, like we've seen Dragoon do well at a very high level playing on those champions. So I think that his ability to kind of play on his own is valuable. And he's going to be impactful no matter what gold value he's at. We have seen that as well. But I want to see him also coordinate with his jungler to try and fend that off. That's something that
That's what I was going to say.
Dignitas Mirage he never had help from jungle or support. So I actually want to see, like, was that an issue with the team, or was that like an issue with Dragoon not like being communicative of like, hey, I need you to be up here right now, right? So I think if he's able to like show those two things at Scouting Grounds, like him saving himself like from getting dove with help from the team, and also like him playing a champ outside of like the very small core that like we know he's good on, I think that would help Dragoon a lot. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more on Dragoon.
Yeah, I mean, even if he's just playing like the Set and the Darius, then the jungle setup that's possible with those champions is huge. So if he can link up with jungle over this event and make meaningful ganks happen, that's gonna be really
honestly good. With Darius, he doesn't even need jungle.
That's true.
He's good.
I want to draw an interesting parallel, and you can disagree with me on this, but I think it's interesting that Dragoon was on the Mirage roster and is getting in as one of the top rated top laners through solo queue. Last year, another top laner for Mirage Esports got in through the top of the solo queue ladder, and his name was Tony Top. He was also on a roster named Mirage, and he was on a team where the jungler, who it was Hayami, was someone that did not play towards topside that often, and often left Tony Top either in brutal counterpick matchups or weak side, and had to just play for himself. Now, do the parallels end there? Are they completely different players? Is Tony Top mechanically better than Dragoon? Or, can we entertain, a similar story where since Tony Top got onto Team Infernal, which was one of the best performing teams at last year's Scouting Grounds, if Dragoon gets also, to be on a different team lineup, something can work and Dragoon gets the shine in a better light.
I don't know. We're trying to avoid like ranking players going in because the point of Scouting Grounds is to see like where they improve like as things go on. So I guess we'll have to see with Dragoon. I think that I don't know. Like what I said, I think if he can show those things, that's interesting. Rafa doing Inception with last year is also kind of interesting. How those kind of threads kind of mirror each other.
It's crazy, right?
But I think that Tony Top and Dragoon are also very different players.
Sure.
Even though a lot of those things line up.
Even just like champion pool is really different. Like I don't think Dragoon's ever gonna play Jax.
Yeah.
But what if he did and smacked? That'd be good.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Camille is probably the closest to a hardcore split push champion. I guess Mordekaiser's also his like most proficient split push champion. I don't really see Gangplank as a
Mordekaiser's
split
still
push champion because
Bruiser
you
boy.
really. Mm,
I thought his
Gangplank is-
Aatrox was pretty good too for Dragoon.
Yeah, that's true.
He put up some like that's
Any
definitely fallback,
champion-
but I thought it was pretty good.
Any champion that's like a bruiser style champion, I am confident that Dragoon can play really well.
That's definitely like his bread and butter, and I think that like the thread that I had for Dragoon, like the thread that I'll have like for a lot of players, like hey, if they show this, I think it'd be really good. Is going to involve like just showing more flexibility, because like when you play League at the highest level, you're going to need to be flexible and like good in multiple things, right? Whereas like a lot of these teams in amateur, it's like, all right, these are the 5 players we have. This is like the way that we're going to win. We're going to get really good at this because we don't have as much time. We're going to play more competitive games, so we're just going to perfect this strategy, right? Competition, when you get really good, it's like, all right, like we can beat them with this or this. So like, what do we do, right?
do we know
changes.
what patch Scouting Grounds will be on?
Current.
Yeah. So it'll be this one.
I haven't heard otherwise. I just assume. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't say on the fandom page.
So, I'll save this question once we discuss PCL and Gamsu in their own right.
Sure.
Cool.
Well, let's do that then.
let's do PCL next.
Yeah. So this player has stood out a lot in a lot of different lights, I think, over the past year and a half or so, I'd say, with the same core like roster. It's him and APA. They're being coached by Lucian since like Supernova last year. And the most recent thing that made him stand out a lot was just picking Ornn and just carrying late game team fight frontline stuff. And I thought that was really cool. It obviously got them a lot of success at Proving Grounds itself. But I think the biggest thing that stands out to me for him is just that he's just really reliable to do whatever job is laid out for him to do. Like on any champion, I feel he can make any champion look like it fits into the rest of the composition. I think that's my favorite thing about PCL.
Maybe towards the tail end, I think Pie Cake Lord, between all 4 of the top laners, has had the highest highs out of the 4 top laners, but also on stage has had some bizarre lows and over the course of the entire year. And so when I say that, I mean things like where Cubby, Risen Champions at the beginning of the year, Pie Cake Lord is playing Silas, yoinks Malphite ulti and just ults in 1v5, and it's like, what?
Okay.
Those were tough.
Okay.
There were a couple tough looks.
Silas is not his champion, okay? That's just the exception, all right? That's not the rule. That's the exception, okay?
That was a tough look.
bagging on him too hard. And then the other exception is that one clip that Cubby likes to pull up where they get 2v1'd by Speedo.
The core JJ rage quit mechanics.
That's the other exception. Okay?
That is still the best clip that's on the internet from this past year of Proving Grounds.
All love and respect to Pi though. I just cannot think of the other 4 top laners. I think it's just funny to bag on, like, man, you know what? Pie Cake Lord has like looked like the best out of these 4, but he's also just had some on stage egregious moments. I think that the close second would be Gamsu when he just like flashed in randomly as what was it, Jason, the Kennen matchup during Proving Grounds. It's just like,
yeah, I remember that.
What the fuck? what happened? So, but apart from that, I agree. Towards the tail end, Pie Cake Lord really stepped up his performance and he wasn't necessarily like the expected carry performer, but he was always a bedrock that the team could build upon. And I think between Pi and Array, they were always the most reliable members of the team consistently.
It's interesting because, like, a lot of the early season was spent around making sure that the mid jungle for Resolve, like, had prio and then snowballing that into the top side. And that changed where it ended up doing that and going towards bot. And Resolve actually got a lot better for it because PCL, I think when Resolve was at its best was when PCL was just left to, like, on his own to fend for himself against the Wolves. And as sometimes the stats looked ugly, but those were some of PCL's best performances. Even thinking back to Barrage, where they went up against Noorg in the Challengers Uprising finals, like, or Sola Fide, that best of 5. Like, the games that he was able to win was when Dokla and Winston weren't able to execute plays on the top side. And so I think, oddly enough, like, PCL was at his best when his stats looked the worst. Like, seriously. I mean, like, he played those games very well, where he lost gracefully. He fended off a lot of tower dives and got as much as he could in the process. And when you throw that on the fact that if this guy gets Camille or Wukong, like, he can hard carry a game if he gets ahead early. Or if he gets Aatrox, like, he can carry a game through top. He can also use his TP to go affect other lanes, like, early. I think he was pretty naturally good at that. I think the PCL is, like, somewhat well-rounded considering the fact that he's coming in the scouting grounds. And I somewhat expect that out of someone who's been here twice and has also played in Academy before. But it's interesting because it's also, like, not something that I expect to say about someone coming into scouting grounds. But I think PCL has shown a lot of different things. There isn't, like, that one thing that he has where it's like, holy shit, like, this guy is, like, unreal, right? Like, the only thing that he's unreal at is fending for himself and then, like, still being impactful as the game goes on. I think that was, like, actually his best trait from this past year. And that's tough to do. But I think that he did it, like, very well. So, I think that's, like, a weird diagnosis, but I think it's still pretty cool that PCL was able to do that.
The most important thing about that too is that that's not something that you learn from solo queue. Really, you as a top laner in solo queue, you mostly are just, like, winning the lane in small ways, or just, like, going 4-0 and, like, winning the game immediately off of that.
Yeah,
none of those are really, like, how you win a game in the way that Pi did for Proving Grounds. So I think that's a really valuable trait to have. And maybe one that is just not going to be possible in like the solo queue guys. So I think if he can solidify that attribute of his gameplay, then that's going to be a really big thing for him at this event.
Cool. Gamsu, the victorious top liner for 100 Thieves Academy. I know we aren't gonna talk about as much about, like, where we'd rank the players or anything like that, or, like, coming in. But I also think it's fair, just given the context of this one, that I think given pedigree and also current performance for me, I think that Gamsu is the strongest player in this role. And I think that given his pedigree and what he's done in the past, I think that he has a lot of higher expectations on him, given the fact that he has been playing since Season 3, Season 4. He has won a world championship in another game, and now he's back to League of Legends doing the thing that most 17-year-olds do when they start playing, which is play through the amateur circuit, and he won the whole damn thing. I mean, I think Luger and Poom and Ryoma were big parts of that as well, but Gamsu really stepped up in some of those games. Like, he first-time Jax on stage to win a Game 5. He hard-carried games on Renekton. Rafa's laughing because he's flashed into a cannon as Jace, but, you know, it's...
No, that's also fucking funny. The other funny thing is that, I don't know if you also showed Smacks your draft, but when you said the whole, that line, Gamsu is doing the thing that most 17-year-old, I'm pretty sure I read this exact line somewhere in a rough draft.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that was taken straight from an
Well,
upcoming
you
article.
can't
that
plagiarize
will-
yourself, Mark.
I may have some good notes on. I may have a lot of notes on what we're talking about today.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm just fucking bagging on you.
Yeah, but I think it's pretty cool. Like, someone who has hit the highest highs in another game and has played at an extremely high level in this game as well, like, did, humble himself and came back and played through the amateur circuit and proved that he deserved to be here, and he won the whole damn thing. Like, that's very, very impressive from Gamsu.
Yep.
And I think that he comes in here as actually a pretty complete player. Like, I think that he has ways to further optimize his laning, and I think that's where he still ran into the most issues throughout Proving Grounds, but he was really good. Like, there's a reason that his team won all of Proving Grounds, and I think a big part of it was that Gamsu stepped up to the level of competition he was up against.
Yeah. He, by the end of the playoffs of Proving Grounds, he was stepping up not only his laning phase, but also his just awareness of, I don't know if it was just better communication with Chad or just better awareness of where the jungler should be, but there's a lot less unforced errors from Gamsu near the tail end of the 100 Thieves Academy's playoff run and eventual overall win. I think the other thing that I'm going to be sad about, and I'm pretty sure Gamsu is going to be prepared for it, but there's going to be so many uninformed viewers coming into watching the tournament, and I'm hoping that the broadcast does a good job of protecting Gamsu as best as they can, because I'm telling you, people are gonna come in and be like, "Wait, Gamsu's in this? Didn't he already play in LCS at some point? Why is he in this tournament?" Blah, blah, blah. Like, we're gonna get that same shit from a bunch of ignorant people watching on Reddit or on Twitch.
There'll be a Reddit thread. It'll happen.
Yep. And
that's just how it goes.
I mean, regardless of that, I think you're right, but I think the important thing is that Gamsu, like, it's sad, but he did humble himself, like, and, he didn't even play in the spring. Like, he was just getting his, like, mechanics back, right? And he comes in as the top laner.
As well.
He had
quite a slow start. I don't want to make it sound like he was, like, completely inting it.
No, but he definitely struggled to pick up some of the new champs that were not named Gwen.
I would implore that people who are watching, people who go back and watch the VOD, and people who are a part of the community, if you see someone on Reddit or on Twitch chat, normally, like, I would just ignore them, but I think there's just genuinely going to be a lot of uninformed, ignorant viewers that can easily be informed or corrected by just explaining Gamsu had to go back through the very start. Like, Gamsu didn't just get gifted into amateur because he was already in XLCS. He had to earn his way through here, just like everyone else.
I just want to play the clip of Michael Jackson from South Park just going like, "Oh, that's ignorant." I feel like that's like all I'm thinking about, like, right now. "Oh, that's ignorant."
Yeah.
No, but it's true, right? And
just a little PSA.
No, I think that Gamsu is, like, I think he's really good. Like, he played really, really good in Proving Grounds. And if he walks in with that form, like, I think that, like, him and PCL, if you throw them in a team, they're definitely, like, very flexible players. And I mean, part of this event is, like, drafting up a team. And I don't like to talk about that too much, but also, like, how you draft your team, I think, will affect how your team develops throughout the week. Like, at least having a somewhat of an idea of, like, hey, I might want to get this out of this player. So, like, if I put another player around him, like, maybe they help bring the best out of each other. Not, like, in their strengths, but also, like, how, like, you want to develop them. PCL and Gamsu are, like, from what they've shown, I think are a little bit more flexible. I think it's very safe to say. But Gamsu, man, he was, like, playing. His Shen was really good, and the way that 100 Thieves Academy played around it was very sound. We know that his Narmanecton's good. His Ornn was, like, his tank play is great, but I mean, most of that was Ornn, a little bit of Scion, and then like randomly showed up and played Jax and like actually did okay. Like I thought that Gamsu like put up a really good split and a good end of the split, and
Yep.
I think he comes in as like, it's weird because he comes in as like what I think is a strong player, but I'm just kind of wondering what everyone else thinks about him just because everyone's familiar with Gamsu and what he's done.
Yep.
It's kind of a weird scenario.
Well, it is time for me to pop this question.
To get
about
coffee?
4 top laners.
Looks like you're out of coffee.
I am out of coffee, which kind of sucks. I might have to order some more or make some more. And I'm going to have a question prepped for each of the roles going in.
Okay.
Some are going to be more funny and lighthearted. Others are going to be serious, and some are like in between. This one is in between. For these 4 top laners going into the tournament, who's going to pick up Graves the best?
Ooh.
Because that's
kind
of a interesting champion for all 4 of these players in different reasons, or for different reasons. For the 2 solo queue players, it's just like these are players that have specific champ pools, and Graves is like not a tank or Camille like concept, and it's not a bruiser like for Dragoon. It is a high resource income split pusher / marksman team fighter. Like,
fuck it, I'll get weird and say Concept. I think Concept's got the weirdest champion pool coming in, and I think that actually will help him with Graves.
I was gonna say the same thing.
But I think that a lot of Graves, though, is knowing how to play out your lane states compared to how the map's being played out, and I think that does favor Gamsu the most. But fuck it, I'll get weird and I'll say that I think Concept's actually somewhat promising.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. Well, 30 minutes and we're done with top lane.
Yeah, we spent a shit ton of time on top.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting for this event.
Fortunately, we already kind of got through XU, so technically we're 1 jungler down. And I guess I hate to do this, but I guess we can start with a jungler that we probably have the least amount of info on, which is Calm Annabellum.
Jamal.
So Uncle Jamal, we are not sure what IGN they're going under. We're assuming it's Calm Annabellum. Their account currently sits Master Tier. It's made up of mostly Kindred, Nidalee, Elise, and Evelyn.
He also plays a lot of Renekton.
Yeah. I honestly don't know if this player has any competitive history, and whether it's collegiate or amateur. And it's out of the 20 players here, it was the last edition, the one that I have the least amount of info on, and that's that might be. I don't know if anyone else has anything on Uncle Jamal or Calm Annabellum.
There's not a whole lot to say about him himself, but there is one comparison that I would like to make here to last Scouting Grounds, where the person that was in those exact shoes that we knew little to nothing about, and that was a jungler that came from solo queue, was none other than Tomio.
Yes, and
now
Smacks.
He had played a very he was on like a sub roster for the roster called Zenith at the time, and then went on to be Evil Genius's Prodigies. But yeah, as you're getting at, Cubby, I'll let you flame me for this. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate you making that comparison and remembering Tomio. None of us knew anything about Tomio going into last year as well.
Yeah.
However,
what I thought you were going to say was that when I made a power ranking of the players, and I made a tier called Tomio tier, and it was underneath all of them because I knew nothing about him. I thought that's what you were going to say. I did do that. Sorry, Tomio.
Hold on, we have an amendment here.
Oh.
Apparently, Calm Annabellum is going by Silly Shots for the event.
Silly Shots.
So that's interesting.
Do you have another account called that? I'm gonna look it up. Nope, he does not.
So yeah. Anyway. All right, cool. So from now on, referring to them as Silly Shots. Smacks, I appreciate the fact that you bring up the Tomio comparison. I think it's a good one. And that is why my Tomio comparison is actually not going to be Calm Annabellum or Silly Shots. It's actually, if anyone's going to do that impression, going to be Perry. And that's why I'm moving over to Perry. Next. First off, are you guys familiar with Perry at all?
Yes. He was in the Wildcard Scouting Combine, and he looked pretty good. I casted a couple of those games, and he was in them, and I was pretty impressed. I believe he got picked up by like a Wildcard. I think they call them developmental teams, right?
Yep.
He played on a. I think he played on
the
one of
same
those for a bit of
roster
time.
as Avalon.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken.
He was on Wildcard Dev with
So
Cleve.
that's pretty cool. I think he's quite good.
Yeah. So Perry is 17. Shout out to Perry, who also carried me in a solo queue game. Because I was getting shit on by closer. Somehow I queued into closer mid. Not fun.
Crawl.
But Perry has mostly played Kane, Zinzao, Udyr on the ladder. But I think the interesting part about Perry is that throughout his time on the ladder, he's actually been coached by Draxer, who was the coach of Zeus. I think that he's similar to Concept in the fact that like he's coming in here having really only competed in a few amateur teams that are lower level. But his team, AoE not Zeus, they've only dropped one game. Same as Concept on AoE Cope. And
you got these AoE names down pat. I'm impressed.
Yeah, AoE is actually, or not Zeus, like for them and Perry. I think that the thing about Perry and the reason that I compare him to Tomio a little bit, despite Evelyn being in Calm Metal or Silly Shots history, is Perry is like Graves is really good. And I think that he is definitely a young player that has potentially a high mechanical ceiling, has gotten to a high rank in solo queue with a little bit of coaching, but mostly off his like hands and fingers and also some cane abusing. And I'm interested to see if he can fit into a very difficult thing to do, which is like jungle competitively. I mean, for me, it's that and support are the two hardest roles to fit into a team. And I'm really curious to see if Perry can do it. I think that comparing him to Tomio beforehand is an unfair comparison, given how much success that Tomio has had, and given the fact that we're already drawing comparisons between Chad and NXI, most likely. But I think Perry's actually a pretty promising young player that we have at the moment, and I'm glad that he's participating in scouting grounds. I think it's gonna be a really good experience for him. Like he's definitely like the kind of person where it's like this is a good event for Perry, where no LCS exposure to the orgs, does not compete in the proving grounds, but very high in the ladder, has had some success in like stuff like UPL, right? And now he gets to go show off his stuff in front of all 10 orgs. That's pretty cool. So definitely good chance for Perry.
He's Perry the Platypus, Agent P.
Make the sound.
Wow.
No, the Perry the sound.
Wow.
Close enough.
Not bad.
That actually was pretty good.
I can't get the. There's like a little that's added in with his little growl.
Texture.
Yeah.
Can't anyway,
moving
that's
on.
Exciting. Yeah.
Chad
Who's next?
or Winston? You guys pick.
I guess it's time for Chad.
Okay.
So I've been a Chad jungle believer for months now. And I get to gloat and say that he won proving grounds. He's making it to scouting grounds. Very proud of my boy. I'm really excited for him. As you mentioned before, Cubby, you can make a lot of comparisons to NXI as he subbed in for the 100 Thieves roster
For Kenvi.
for Kenvi. Still had a lot of huge success with the team, and went on to do very well at the end. He actually won the whole thing, which is not what happened to NXI actually, because Anu ended up winning.
And he beat Academy teams along the way.
Yeah, true.
Pretty cool.
So hell yeah to Chad. I was super impressed by his just whole story. We got to talk to him on the Proving Grounds pod, and he mentioned how like he's just like a solo queue grinder. He's been like steadily improving his own craft over like over the years. Like just a few years ago, he was in platinum. Is like, how can I get to scouting grounds?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he is now here at scouting grounds, I think is just such a cool story. It's so endearing, and the way that he did it as well is
speaks a lot to him.
Yeah, it's amazing. And he did perform super well in the like academy and proving grounds environment. He himself as a player played super strong in the jungle. He had some moments where he flew a little too close to the sun and had some rough games, but there were just as many games where he was carrying on his team with players like Ryoma and Luger on it.
He also drew 14 Graves bans. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. This guy is really good, and I'm really excited for him at Scouting Grounds. I think like that story is just my favorite one for the I don't want to draw favorites for players, but that one's my favorite.
I think it's pretty damn impressive to have to be the jungler that steps in for Kenvi and still win Proving Grounds.
Yeah,
and
it was not the expectation. And
right.
to be fair, and we'll get this caveat out of the way now, if Team Liquid was at full power for the entire event, they would have won, and it would not have been close. But they weren't. So 100 Thieves did win. And kind of appropriate that both teams were with subs, but still both teams are probably the two strongest rosters that we had going into the tournament.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but I mean, regardless, it's a very impressive feat. And I think that what you said with Chad playing well and carrying games, not only did he carry games playing stuff that we know they didn't carry games with, like Lee Sin or Viego, but he also did really well on enablers like Jarvan and Trundle. And that was a big character development arc for Chad going to Proving Grounds as well. Or coming out of Proving Grounds, I should say.
And on a new team environment, too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's... I don't want to flame Young and Instinct, but it is very easy to come in and trust a player like Ryoma.
Yeah, if Luger isn't an LCS next year, we've got a fucking problem in A. So
yes,
we'll put it that way.
Of God.
Yeah, we'll put it that way.
Please get Luger in LCS. If he's staying in North America, honestly, he could also go play at LEC for all I care. Just get him in Tier 1, please, right now.
But I'm with you in the fact that it's just because he played on a better roster, he still won the whole damn thing. I mean, and he had to get through some good teams to get there too. And so I don't think it takes anything away from Gamsu and Chad just to say that they played with better teammates that won the whole thing. That's a unfair thing to say, and a very impressive feat for them. As honestly, I think that I'm excited to see what Chad can do. I think that Chad, the rate of improvement that he's shown in his first split of amateur, the fact that he has manifested a lot of his success, like he wanted to go to Scouting Grounds, he wanted to play on 100 Thieves Next. It was the only amateur team he wanted to play on. He made both happen, and now he gets to go and actually like show his stuff to try and get an academy, which is real cool. So I think it's pretty cool.
So cool.
Yeah.
Go Chad.
All right, Winston,
I think had the best redemption arc within a season.
Yes.
So like the come up for Chad is obviously really impressive, but I think the redemption from Winston is equally impressive in its own right, because he went from being seen as the weakest player of one of the best amateur rosters we had to being the best jungler from amateur.
I think that's true. Just overall, especially playing, like seeing how he and Bradley just made their own, like the game was just about what they were doing at any given moment. I think that was really cool. The way that the new environment like shifted everything regarding Winston, and a lot of it was because of how he made it his own, right? I think that this jungler coming off the back of a criminally short academy run, if we're being completely honest. This guy got one academy split. He placed second overall, and they kicked him out. What the fuck, guys? This guy's really good. I don't know why got removed from academy in the first place. Regardless, to go from that to the dumpster fire that was Sola Fide, and then still keep that motivation going, still make it on this really, really sick roster, and be one of the premier carries on it. I think that's so cool. And again, I think this is another jungler that's so impactful in that enabler role as well, like you were just saying, Cubby. And we saw that in action so many times with Bradley and Arrow. I think we have a big treat for us waiting in scouting grounds for the jungle role.
I think that Winston, I'll take a slightly more pessimistic view. I think that getting dropped out of one split of Academy sucks for anyone. But I don't think that Winston played great in that split, and I don't think that he played great in the spring either. He was definitely the weak point on Sola Fide, and the point that a lot of teams look to punish and pick on. And when you think about the teams that had success against Sola Fide, it was the fact that Anda was a better enabler, setting up Viper, and Fnatic was the big carry for Barrage. Those are the two teams that actually really took it to nowhere, or Sola Fide. And that and Zeus, where Zeus was weird.
I don't think Sola Fide struggled against Zeus, did they?
No, they didn't. Zeus was nowhere Kryptonite. Zeus was nowhere Kryptonite. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Well, because the thing is that Zeus had some decent games against Sola Fide. Because there was a moment where that was during the Giants, or no, Unified Grand Prix, where RBM had his like
the Lee Sin comeback in that sort of it. Yeah. He just said, "Fuck this, I'm playing Lee." Cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So I think that Winston, like, now moving into summer, I actually think that Winston improved a lot, and I think that's that's the thing where I think that his ability to really his team did a good job of like kind of crediting him a lot as being a leader. And I think that him being the playmaker and kind of being on main engage a lot of the time, which is good in this meta for jungle. But I going back over Proving Grounds, I think that Winston, like, he likes to take plays, whether they're good or bad. He has faith that he can win those plays, right? And I think that he does so like quite a bit. But I think the real interesting part about him is that it definitely is a role where teams are always looking for leaders, and it was very clear that Winston was a sound leader for Wildcard Red in the jungle role, and also had the play to back it up and really stand out himself throughout the split too. So that was good. But meta change definitely helped, and I think he fixed a lot of his pathing issues that he had in the spring going into the summer, and was way more effective on what he was playing. I thought he was a good player, very good player in the summer.
Yeah, fully agree. Excited for Winston at this tournament. We have strong jungle presence, and that's going to be really good because the mid laners are super fucking stacked.
20 minutes on jungle. Let's go.
Mark has a jungle question for us, though.
That is correct.
Mid lane's going to take a while.
Otherwise, I was going to have to. All right. So this one is a little bit more targeted about what is the likelihood that which junglers are going to get signed to Academy next year.
Oh, fuck. That's really hard to answer now because we don't know what's happening with the crew that's currently
there.
Yeah, because like Academy is waiting for LCS to make moves. Yep. And so like we don't know like who's like if LCS players are like sticking around or they're going elsewhere or they're going to play in Academy, or that has a big trickle down effect.
Yeah. So to me, this question mostly depends on where players like Kenvi and Contracts, and well, maybe not Contracts because he's going to be in LCS anyway. Armeo, like where these guys are going. If they're staying in Academy, then like that's
then there are other players where it's like
isn't gonna be taken.
we kind of assume that Will's staying in academy given his age and what he showed.
Man, I hope so. That'd be so disappointing if he didn't.
FlyQuest is interesting because does NXI get another year in academy, or does he get an LCS team, or does he go elsewhere? Well, let's put it this way. I think that the two junglers that are coming in here that came from the competitive circuit are both definitely worth considering signing. Personally, I would break the no ranking rule. Personally, I think for me, Chad's more interesting than Winston because of the rate of improvement and what Chad showed at Proving Grounds. I think that him showing flexibility in the role and also his ability to not be afraid to pull the trigger, but also take better fights compared to what I saw from Winston, who's also, he loves to take fights in general. I think that Chad stood out to me a little bit more in Proving Grounds. And I think that he's a younger player, so I think he's a little bit more appealing for me. But that's me personally.
I think that it is...
I think they're both worth looking at. Yeah.
I agree with you that if you're talking about one player, I would promote Chad. I think it's very, very likely that an academy team just scoops up Winston Bradley, and that's the academy core, and they build around that. I think it's super, super likely that it happens. So I think because of that, I think it's more likely that Winston gets picked up. But I think they both should.
I think they're both deserving. I mean, if there's them, like out of the junglers that we saw from PG, them and Fnatic are the ones that are probably top of the list, or should be top of the list for a lot of these teams. But it's tough because like you have pretty good core of young junglers in academy. Like I think Tomio will 100% should have more splits in academy and are very promising. I wasn't as high on Hyper, but Hyper's a young player that, you know, you got to consider that that's probably worth still investing in.
And Tomio. Well, did you say Tomio?
Yeah, Tomio will.
You did.
Dude, okay. Tomio will are so young and really good. Holy shit.
Yeah. We got a bright future in North America for
jungle talent pool is not an issue in North America.
No.
Yeah.
Neither is marksman pool as well.
Neither is mid lane.
We're gonna get to that later.
Which is next. Rafa. Look at these transitions.
Okay, so mid is. Can we all agree this is the most stacked role in this tournament?
Yeah, it's unanimous.
Most stacked. I think it's most stacked it's ever been.
I wasn't around before 2020, so I can't speak on that. But
I looked back at specifically mid. I'm confident this is the most stacked it's ever been.
The four mid laners coming here are very good. Well, it's going to be very fun watching them go up against each other.
It's worth noting that there was another guy, Spearaxe, who could have potentially gone, and it still would have also been incredibly stacked. There are 5 players.
Dark Wings, I think, also might have gotten anti-one-tricked. The inverse one-trick. I don't know exactly what happened with like all the rulings and like how the spreadsheet shook out. The race for mid lane in solo queue was actually very close.
It was really close.
But the 2 mid laners going are from solo queue are Fire and Strampist, who we both saw play competitively for 3 out of the 4 splits between the 2 of them. And then Bradley and APA, who were 2 of the top mid laners that we had all year for amateur. So where do you guys want to start?
I guess before we get into talking about them, I just want to also, I know you guys already kind of hammered in this part. I think the next 4 or 5 mid laners that could have been on the list would have just been as deserving. It's not to take away from, you know, the players that are going. It's just to add that, like, this year we had a lot of really fucking good mids.
Yeah.
And they're all domestic talent. So I'm just saying, we don't need to be looking elsewhere for mids. We have really fucking good mids in NA.
And
just reach
JoJo's
the pipeline.
Promoted, so.
Do we though? Or is it just 10 of the same player that plays slightly different champs? Who knows?
I see that Cubby has an interesting direction that we're taking this. I'm gonna go ahead and start with one of the players.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, but yeah, let's get going.
Around the topic. Let's just start with the one that I think every single spectator and LCS team and everybody's going to have their eyes on the most out of all these 20 players. That is Fire. Fire has won everything that he's been in for the past 3 years.
even tweeted out it's the only event he's yet to win.
Yep. And he's been to scouting grounds a handful of times now.
2018, 2019.
Yeah. So this is the player to watch, I think, of all 20 players. If he can make this event work for himself and work with the team that he's got and work with the LCS staff that he's got, there's no reason in my mind that he shouldn't be in Academy next year. He's already proven way more than anybody else just on results that he deserves a shot. And I think for all of North America's sake, if it doesn't happen at the start of 2022, we have fucked up, I think.
Okay, well then let me throw the counterpoint at you as I continue to play devil's advocate. Does Five Fire still have something to prove at Scouting Grounds, considering that he did not play in this last split of Proving Grounds, and players like Bradley, APA, and Strompist all really doubled up their game?
I think he does. I think he needs to show again that, like, this really competitive pool of mid laners is still...
He is still the alpha. He needs to prove that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
He is still, like, the top dog of this pack that he's been beating for 3 years. I think he needs to give it one last hurrah and see where it goes from there. I think that's all he can do at this point. He's already done everything else.
I think that that's always been the tough part about the Five Fire conversation, is the conversation always comes down to why not Five Fire when other people are making mid selections. And the resume this guy's thrown up makes that question very hard to answer. But that said, I still think I really do think that Five Fire, like, still has to prove that, like, him taking a split off wasn't a mistake. And sure, I have faith that that will happen. But that's going to be a question that I think naturally a lot of teams have. I think that for Five Fire, it's unfortunate that that is the reality, that he saw that that was the best path. And I think that it was. Like, what else is he going to do in amateur? Just win again, right? Like, this guy's won everything he's competed in. So I really understand why he took a split off. But I still think that him showing up and showing that he's still in top form and the Five Fire that has won all those tournaments can only help him. Besides that, this guy specializes on enablers mid. His pool's very deep. He always pulls out random shit like the Vigar into his ear. His Yone's was really good when that came out. His Zoe's real freakishly good. I think the only knock would be struggles on assassins outside the Blanc, but that's pretty. Everything else, once again, he has answered. His assassin answer, by the way, was Pantheon, which they triple flex on a new, and his Pantheon was nasty. But once again, enablers impacting the map. That's what he specializes in, and he's put up amazing performances in amateur. So we're gonna have to see if this is the year for Five Fire at Scouting Grounds. Rafi, you have anything else to chip in about Five Fire?
In the words of T1 and Tarzan, who, just to add on to the multiple things that Five Fire,
he even won all the money matches he played in.
Yeah, he won every single fucking money match, and I think if you can even get someone like Tarzan to say, like, I think it is absolutely ridiculous that no one has signed Five Fire yet.
Tarzan doesn't even play this game, and he knows. He's a professional in another esport, and he still sees it. Obviously, I'm joking. Big vouch.
Moving on. Who do you guys want to do next?
Well, let's keep the solo queue duo together. Let's go.
Strompy.
Strompist. So, Strompist to me has actually improved quite a lot. My opinion of Strompist has skyrocketed since I saw him perform last year, where I was under the impression that this guy was just like a Rise 1 trick, and he'd play Rise like he was playing Tryndamere. He would just die for the turret every time. He'd have like 12 CS a minute, but he wouldn't be in any team fight, so it didn't matter. This year, and specifically this split, changed my mind a lot. I think that he's grown a whole lot on his time on Supernova. His team fighting is a whole lot better, and I'm a lot more confident in his ability to play other control mages. I think that's his specialty. Obviously, is going to be the control mages, but he's got some wacky stuff. Like if it is anywhere near a control mage, I'm pretty confident he can play. Like he's got a really sick Cassio and other stuff like that. So I'm pretty impressed with Strumpist. I think he's going to do really well. And you know, he's been in academy before, but I think he's a really solid player, and he's done a whole lot to carry the Supernova squad like throughout this year as well. I'm impressed.
I think the interesting thing about Strumpist is that he and Winston have similar academy stints where they were on there for a split and they didn't perform atrociously, but they didn't perform that great, and they weren't in that amazing of an environment team roster wise to like really excel.
For Supernova?
Supernova Spring.
FlyQuest.
Or I thought you were talking about Supernova Spring.
Oh, FlyQuest? Oh, yeah. I don't remember like what scenario he was in for FlyQuest, honestly.
It was a pretty doomed roster. Like everyone was not even like Strumpist was probably the only person you could argue that was at least top 5 in their role for that year. Everyone else on FlyQuest Academy was like bottom half of their role. I think that was Airy top lane. It wasn't Fans jungle split.
Was that the Toronto core that they took?
I think so.
Okay. I don't have as good a memory as that, but yeah, keep going.
Me and Dimitri casted did an unofficial FlyQuest Academy cast when we were trying to potentially pitch ourselves as the FlyQuest Academy casters back when, you know, everyone had their own casters for the Academy channels.
Yeah.
So that was not a good time, unfortunately. I think Maxi was the jungler, and the funny thing is that Maxi looked like an insane jungler from the ERLs, which is why he was picked up in the first place. Looked like dog on the team, and I just don't think the team environment worked out. So, you know, and because that was the only split that Strumpist got, I think it left like an unfortunate image of him in academy. Like, oh yeah, he got his chance in academy and he didn't do that well. And I think many people are probably rewrite it as, oh, he sucked. Strumpist didn't suck, just didn't have many resources to work with. So like, what are you supposed to do on that roster?
Yeah. So then he moves into Supernova for this split after last year he competed on Team Fish Tacos. That did not go well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Supernova this split,
I mean,
the spring.
He basically came back to Supernova.
Yeah,
he was
it's his fourth. It's his fourth time on Supernova.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds weird, but like for amateur, it's kind of normal. Like,
how it goes.
He's not the only person who's been on Supernova 4 times. But yeah, so I think the interesting things for Strumpist in this one, or like going into this, is him being much improved is not something that I picked up originally. It was actually something that a lot of the players that he was going up against kept on telling me, like, hey, Strumpist has gotten a lot better, or Strumpist is playing pretty well. Like, I'm having more trouble against Strumpist than I used to, or Strumpist is giving me trouble and he did not used to give me trouble. Like, and I think it's a weird mix where I'm going to take something completely out of the game and having not talked with Strumpist or the people like around him for this, but just kind of give a hunch. I think playing at St. Louis has given him a lot of confidence. I think that like having him compete in collegiate, getting more wins, but also playing very well in those wins, working with a coach, like a different coach that has worked in academy, and also just like being in that environment, like you kind of see like a lot of the St. Louis people, like Strampa's having fun, like he's like joking around, and I don't know if that was just who he was surrounded by earlier, or just maybe he's having a good time at St. Louis. It feels like Strampus is like kind of, he's always been a grinder, but it feels like he's also like kind of coming out of his shell a little bit, not only like in his gameplay, but also like kind of, himself, like he's on the quieter side, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like for whatever reason, maybe it's helping out his play. For me, Strampus has always been someone that has, it always feels like he's got one more thing up his sleeve, whether that's a build, whether that's a champ like Cassio, as you mentioned, Smacks. Like, this guy is prepared to play in any event he's going to be in, right?
You remember his Muramana Silas
yep,
build?
the Cosmic Drive rush on Vigar.
Yeah, that was cool.
It was really good. Like, it works out. Like, this guy, he grinds out the game. He figures out what works for him, and he does it. And I think that he was a huge part of Supernova making it as the last team at Proving Grounds, which is a huge accomplishment for them. And I know that especially in the spring, I don't know as much in the summer just because I didn't talk with them as much, but the team credited Strampus a lot for helping teach them small things. Strampus definitely helped everyone around him improve as well, and that's always something that you're gonna want to have in any team environment. But yeah, Strampus, like he's coming in like where it's someone that we're all really familiar with. He's played around for a long time, but it really feels like the opinions like has risen on Strampus with his play of late. And as you mentioned, Smacks, this is probably the most competitive role here. Strampus has proven that he can hold up to everyone here, and I'm really excited to watch these four players like go up against each other because I think we have four good mid laners here for sure that we know of. Yeah.
Cool. I'm so excited for mid. The whole mid lane role is gonna be great.
Yeah, mid's good. We got 2 more to go still.
Yeah. So let's continue this with APA. APA got a different IP address, so this year will be better.
Yes. Fun fact. APA is the only player from 2020 Scouting Grounds to be returning.
Wow. I didn't know
that. That's correct. Team Mountain last year. And I think this is super exciting because when you look at APA and kind of like the status of himself as a player back then, he had just come off a season where he finally picked up control mages for the first time and looked pretty decent on them. Orianna, Syndra, Rise. Maybe not the Rise so much, but definitely the Orianna and Syndra started becoming better. Well, he's kind of always had the Ziggs when he started first branching out of the Asol, Talia, Kled 3-trick realm. Ziggs was kind of like the first control mage he went to, but Orianna and Syndra finally got there. Now, this still puts APA in this, in 2020, it puts APA in a spot where he's like, well, I'm known mostly for roaming and giving a lot of resources over to others because I'm enabling them with my really weird champion pool. But now I can also play control mages. So if I'm playing to go even or decently have a winning lane matchup, I will be very useful in team fights.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of this year, he has picked up Lucian. He has picked up Aurelia. He is much more well-rounded. He has consistently on stage, not just scrims, now on stage, solo killed mid laners in improving rounds. APA.
He was drawing Lucian bans and Aurelia bans. Yeah.
Like, can you imagine
Aurelia is PCL too,
where you go from being an Asol specialist, and then Talia and Khaled.
And he still is an ASOL specialist.
Yeah, he still maintains the ASOL, but he's drawing bans not for the ASOL, but for meta champions that also are huge lane bullies and hard carries in Lucian Aurelia. Like, how fucking cool is that? As just a timeline.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for APA just because like this guy on average plays 10 solo queue games a day, and he did this on top of playing competitive and having scrims, and that's a lot. Like,
I'm pretty sure he would have been one of the mid laners that qualified off of ladder also.
No, he would have. Yeah, he would have. Yeah. His APA 1 account was hovering around top 20 consistently.
I think it's still 1,400 right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, this guy is really, like, he plays a shit ton of League. There's no denying that, but also, like, he's a very good player. Yeah. And I think
he's currently top 20 right now. Yeah.
I think that it says a lot for APA that he is the one player to be back from what many considered a very talented scouting grounds class in 2020. Obviously, quite a few of those players got picked up, but I think it also just says a lot that he is the one player back because he almost feels like he's going in as, once again, a different player this year. Like, he has worked his ass off to evolve his gameplay, and he's now coming in as someone where, yeah, he's going to have his flavor picks, and flex Ziggs. Ziggs was his most played, and it was 4 and 5, but the fact that that team could flex Ziggs and no one else could was huge for their strategy. And, I mean, he knocked out Team Liquid and C9 and Proving Grounds off, like, the play of his control mage play. Like, he was playing Victor and Orianna really well in those games. And I think that that's something that not a lot of people would have expected from APA in the middle of 2020 to, like, sit here a year and a half later and be like, holy shit, this guy's gotten a lot better at the game. And it's true. And he's feels like a I don't want to say a complete player, but he is a much, much, much more complete player coming into this scouting grounds.
Yeah, he has a lot to offer.
Yeah,
and I think that's just something that he's gonna need to show here, because it takes a lot, because like you said, Rafa, to go from a roaming player to somebody who can play things like the Lucian and be a early game carry in his own lane. He doesn't go anywhere else to make it happen. He just does it himself, and sometimes with the jungler as well.
Yeah,
it's really, really huge to see him like sort of blossom like that. So super exciting player to watch here, and it's going to make him, I think, much more competitive against a really strong pool of mid laners as well, because he is very versatile now. So really good quality to have, and I'm excited. As always. I feel like I always say that I'm excited, but it's true. Sweet. Well, that's APA.
Yeah.
Got one more. And that's Bradley.
The newest player in addition. Well,
yeah.
It feels like the newest player, but is it really? Because obviously formerly known as CP Freeze. Yeah, the newest name change. I think the most interesting part about Bradley is that when he was pissing out all of Collegiate in the spring, and he wasn't playing in Proving Grounds to, on purpose, make sure that he had the highest ranked account possible to get on the best team possible, and then ended up actually landing on Wildcard Red with Arrow, that paid off. And I think that Bradley being on that top team, it really helped him in the long run, because I think I can confidently say that if it wasn't for him being on the top team, I don't know if he would have evolved his play the way that he was able to in the last 6 months to like prep himself to go to scouting grounds.
He would have been that guy that where we watched the collegiate stream and we're like, holy shit, CP Freeze, this guy is kind of popping off. And then that's sort of it.
No, he would have been the guy that was just still perma-playing Silas Akali Gwen Aurelia.
Yeah. Oh, man, his Gwen was so good. But
it's really nasty, yeah.
Anyway.
Any Gwen flexes mid? Who knows? But
I hope so.
I mean, I think he went from being this freak that would pop off on his like niche champions to being a rather well-rounded mid that could pop off on, like, Lichbane third on Twisted Fate. Like, he won games, like, taking that item and positioning well enough to not go Hourglass. His rise, for the one that 100 Thieves Academy just got, like, absolutely dumpstered in game 1 because of his rise play.
Yep.
I think that, or he also showed that he can play more than just Azir for control mages, right? Like, his Syndra, Oriana, better. But he hit the highest highs, I think, of anyone, like, here.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
In
this year,
Proving Grounds.
especially.
Yeah, for summer, I think, like, he hit the highest highs out of, I think, any player that played an amateur. Like, he did some freakish shit on the Rift.
Agreed.
Yeah. He's
Bradley's
really exciting.
Insane. His mechanics are so good, and I think the way that he played with Winston too is just another huge point in favor of him. I know they intentionally don't do this, but could you imagine if one of these Scouting Grounds teams just has Winston and Bradley on it? Oh God.
Yeah, probably not going to happen.
It just break the entire event.
Well, I mean, you could say the same about, we haven't talked about bot lane yet, but if you pair up,
that's true. Wixie Breezy.
Yeah, or Ray Winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of nuts. Anyway.
You got anything else chipping about Bradley, Rafa, before we get your magic question?
Bradley's fucking sick. Trying to think. So, my question about mid lane. Since this is our most stacked role going into this, and because we have so much tape and history on these 4 players, what kind of role do we expect to see out of these players on their teams? I know that's kind of like hard to determine based on like we need to see who gets on which team, but what do you think would be like who would be the most flexible in adapting for the team, and who would be the more like, no, this person needs to be the carry or the primary resource for this team?
I want to see Strumpus on a team where he's not funnel everything. He got funnel. He's funnel everything on Supernova and St. Louis
in summer.
Yeah. He is the big funnel carry. So I'd be kind of curious to see him on not that role. Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of that,
I think it'd be cool to see. It'd be cool to see Bradley on a top side focused team. It'd be cool to see Fire on a bot side focused team. We haven't seen that from either of them. I don't know like how much that does for them as players, but I think it'd be interesting.
Fire played bot side in 2020 for Shoryu, but
did he?
Oh yeah.
I guess.
Oh yeah.
I guess that's true. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think seeing Strumpus on a team where he doesn't get as many resources would be interesting, because he gets a lot of stuff for Supernova, and Stu. I don't know. Like, besides that, like I think APA is flexible enough.
Yeah.
And I can't even see like Bradley on a team with no resources, because like he played games where he didn't have anything and he was still good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know.
Hard question.
Yeah, it kind of depends on like who gets paired with who.
These aren't meant to be easy. Well, at least this one was. I
giving us riddles.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Marksman.
Okay.
Where do you want to go? Yeah, where do you want to start?
Let's do solo queue players again first. So we've
Good
got
Boy.
Good Boy. Great name. Amazing name. So Good Boy is a player that we have seen in competitive pretty much only on the Mirage roster most recently, and then also on a roster called Dark Allegiance before that. So, because I believe he is French Canadian, right? Good Boy.
Mhm.
I think Ketong is as well.
The Ezreal god himself.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I know about him. He's French Canadian. He's really good at Ezreal, and he's had some team experience. Although I think they were speaking French when he was playing.
Dark Allegiance was a French-speaking team. Dignitas Mirage was not. He did play for Dig Mig for Cup. They won 06, and he was dropped.
That's true.
But his Ezreal is really good. I think if he can show good performances off of Ezreal, that would help him greatly. And he's very high up on the ladder, so curious to see if he's able to do some good things at Scouting Grounds.
Oh, I got it wrong. Ketong wasn't his bot lane duo. It was
Pocus.
Yeah. On Dignitas Mirage, it was Light Pulse. Or Clarit. No,
yeah, I think it was Clarit's at that point. Yeah.
Poutine was his lane partner. That's what.
That's the long time one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm aligned now.
He's also won some T1 money matches.
True.
I'm getting word from fellow French Canadian, otherwise known as Fnatic, that the Quebec support talent pool is very good because it consists of Diamond, Vulcan, Winter, Poom, and Daption. So he's throwing out some love for his fellow French Canadian.
That's not bad.
But anyway, some fun stuff. Yeah. So that's what we know about Good Boy. I'm always excited to see more NA AD carries pop up because you never quite know when they're just going to be the best player in the whole world. As shown by Spawn last year, I think is a really good comparison there, where we were
shown by Danny this year.
Well, Danny this year as well.
Yeah.
But we weren't really sure what to expect from Spawn, but he looked really solid, and he got picked up by Dignitas Academy. Originally, their only rookie, and he ended up looking really solid.
That didn't surprise me, actually. Like, he was like the anchor
for Scouting Grounds. It did not.
He was the anchor for Polar Ace, man. That team was. That team was like, we're gonna fuck around for 20 minutes and then just hope that Spawn has our back in team fights, which he did. He did more often than not.
He was
Bucio was lit.
Spawn was like the calm uncle at the Independence Day party, and then Bucio was like the crazy dad, like shooting off all the fireworks and shit.
Yeah.
Like he's like going crazy, like, all right, we're gonna set everything on fire, we're gonna do this crazy show, and then Spawn's over there cooking the burgers.
Bucio the Blanc, give me more.
A necessary job, but not the flashiest. And I think that's still true.
Yeah. All right. So the other solo queue AD we have is actually Kyle, the artist formerly named as Short Hop.
True.
Yeah. So I think this one's really interesting because Kyle has actually been in LA before. He has competed with UWO with Winston in a final, a collegiate final, where they
lost to Maryville.
They got smacked by Maryville, but he's been here, and he's actually currently helping out with coaching the team, or at least that's what Leaguepedia told me. And he now finds himself trying to go pro a little bit later, which is really interesting. Also, AoE randoms very much overperformed this split, so
a lot because of him, I think.
Yeah, I think Short Hop played pretty well.
Yeah,
Short Hop, and my prediction for next year's candidates of Pog mid laners to look at, Leo.
Leo did look really good. That's true. Yeah.
I think Leo will be one of the mid laners that goes from like, it's kind of slept on this split. I know I slept on him until Veteran pointed him out. I was like, holy shit, wait.
Seraphine abuser. Anyway, no, Leo was nice. This split, but yeah, Lucian's meta right now. That's good for short hop.
That's very good for short hop.
That'll be interesting. I don't know. I think that he's definitely like a player with a lot more competitive experience under his belt, but he consistently maintains a pretty high rank, and it's interesting that he hasn't really gotten looked at before. I know that he was also like very much a team leader within AoE Random, so another player here that's known for having a veteran presence in Proving Grounds, now attending Scouting Grounds, which would be good.
AD carry prospect whose name starts with SH suddenly changes name to just regular name and suddenly pops off and goes LCS. Thoughts?
That's a reach, but I like it.
I don't know, man.
That's creative.
Danny's not even his name.
That's true. Yeah, at least Kyle's name is Kyle. Yeah.
But Danny's name is also Kyle.
I know. Oh, it's meta. It's very. He should have.
Goes even deeper.
Should have named himself like Jimmy. Try to like do like the same thing.
No, he should. Wait, no. Never. I don't know. Maybe.
Danny's name being Danny and not Kyle, even though like his name is Kyle, is definitely really fucking confusing. That's for sure.
It's pretty funny.
That's really confusing. So
it would have been even better if Kyle's name was Daniel. That would have been insane. But no, it's not. His name is also Kyle.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. I'm excited for that. Let's get on to good old Wixie. Wixie, bot laner for Cloud9 Amateur the whole year.
Him and Breezy will both be here.
Him and Breezy. Both qualifying because they got 3rd overall in Proving Grounds for amateur teams, and Arrow couldn't go. But Breezy got in off of
Solo Cube, yeah.
Solo Cube.
Yeah.
Wixie's sick. I'm really excited for Wixie. I've been singing his praises for a very long time. If you've been watching the show, you know that.
Longer than any of us, yeah.
I have been really impressed by, funny enough, his Ezreal as well. We were talking about Good Boys Ezreal. And just his ability to bring the games that were not supposed to be won at all by Cloud9 Amateur into just complete wins. And he was doing that on a team where his teammates were just like so insane all the time. Like you never know what Captain Trimps is going to do. He's playing singed mid sometimes, and
2 victory.
2 victory, yeah. And I think a lot of that is because of how consistent Wixie is. His mechanics are amazing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing his team fights, but also if he can put up the same laning advantages that we saw him get with Breezy. I think that's going to be a big test for him to see if he can manage that with another support duo. It'd be easier if he rolls Winter. That could happen.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
That's something that I think that Wixie, you pointed out as Ezreal, but former Draven one trick, 3-0 on Draven in Proving Grounds, and also his Caitlyn was actually his second most played. And he played it to some success. So I think one of the reasons that C9 Amateur found success is that Wixie and Breezy were one of the few bot lanes that could actually hang with Arrow and Daption earlier in the season. Array and Winter were not playing well until Proving Grounds in lane. So I think that their ability to do that was really good. And I think that you're right in the fact that Wixie looked best when he was just playing janitor in team fights.
Yep.
He was a good janitor. There's a skill to being a good janitor for a marksman, and he had it. Yeah, he was good at that. So that definitely benefited him as well. But yeah, I think that I credited Breezy a bit more for their success, but I think that they each found. I mean, that team found success. They were the second best team in amateur this year, like until Proving Grounds. So where they got team killed, which sucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that both of them played very well, and excited to see both of them very deserving for, especially Wixie, this is his first year pretty much playing competitive. He was collegiate before this at Harrisburg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely watch out for Wixie at Scouting Grounds. He's going to be big.
Yeah.
I want to pull up his TikTok that he has where he goes, I know you're obsessed with me.
Not the big chin one, man. Oh, God.
I know you're obsessed with me.
It's so good.
Let the kid
It
live.
is a very good video.
It's a funny one.
Wide Wixie.
Wide Wixie.
That, Joshi created that meme. The Wide Wixie one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
Good stuff. Classic memes from good old Wixie there. Well, we got one left. One more bot liner. It's Ray.
Yeah.
This one is like super exciting. Now, I will say that off of spring, apart from Danny, Wixie was like the well, actually, Gorka was also another like really strong AD from spring, but I was really ready for Wixie to be the best AD going into this tournament, and that Array was always a strong team fighter and showed like potential on his Supernova start. Mainly the Jinx and the Tristana games come to mind. In fact, I'm pretty sure half of the Baron steals were due to his Jinx in particular. Obviously, it was really ridiculous that
spring Jinx Baron steals, iconic.
Yeah,
unforgettable.
I'm pretty sure we had one every other game, and I'm pretty sure half of those games were because of Array's Jinx.
There was one game where Array did it twice.
Yeah, that fucking ridiculous. But when he got onto Resolve, a lot of people, I mean, I think we all were kind of in agreement that like Array is at most a side grade compared to Gorka, and is going to have to really improve on his laning phase so that he can get to the best part of or his strength as a player, which is team fighting and late game. By the end of not only the Proving Grounds season, but even during the collegiate season that has been on the flip side of Proving Grounds with University of St. Thomas, Array has become a fucking monster. And I'm so floored by his progress, his development in the course of less than a year. Because coming from Supernova, it was like, oh, okay, this guy's pretty good at cleaning up in team fights.
I mean, they exclusively played Thresh comps for him.
Yeah.
Like that, they were indexing into his team fighting.
And then we saw the ultimate form of that with the Ornn comps in Proving Grounds, where they just took Tristana.
That another level.
If you go back and watch the Tristana game of his against Cloud9,
where he took down Resolve 2-0 C9 Academy, which King and Isles were heralded as the best bot lane in Academy in the spring, and still very good in the summer. They took them down as well, and Array played out of his mind.
That Tristana game against Cloud9 was the best AD carry performance, I think, of the whole tournament. The conditions were set perfectly to make it that.
There was one fight where he didn't buffer a rocket jump correctly, and that almost cost him the game, but they did make up for it as things went on. So
there are happy little mistakes in all games.
Yeah, happy little mistakes.
Yeah, that was such an insane game. As soon as I saw that game, I was like, okay, I'm paying attention to this player every single game from here on until the end of time, and I'm still doing that because he has not disappointed since then. It was a really big, like, wake up call, I think, for me and probably a lot of other spectators and analysts, who seeing like, holy shit, if this guy is set up to be the carry, he is going to carry. That's just how that works. Even against Cloud9 Academy, and that was awesome. So
he positions very well in team fights, and I think that
the reason his solo queue account is called DPM.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely a strength where, I mean, the whole team indexed into it, right? But on top of that, given the fact they were playing Ornn and, you know, trying to target bot, he did up his lane phase as a part of that, and he
had Winter.
He was positioning himself to be in that position to carry, where he was getting more gold earlier in the game. So I think that has helped him a bit, and the better and the more that he can lane well, the better that is for Array. And for Scouting Grounds, watch this guy team fight. He has a very natural, uncanny ability to position really fucking well in team fights. And he's very good. So, yeah, Array is a very good player, and I think that going into Scouting Grounds, he's one that everyone already has their eyes on. Yeah, that's a good way to wrap up AD.
Yeah, fucking, like, just I can't emphasize enough how incredible it was for Jackson's story this year. Just to go from Supernova as a really unknown. I think this was his first competitive year
for him and Wixie both. Yeah.
Both him and well, at least Wixie had collegiate experience.
Array did not. Yeah, he was bagging groceries, literally. Yeah.
So fucking really, really fucking cool shit. So for AD carries then, for AD carry, the question going into Scouting Grounds is, since our current patch is not quite like Worlds meta, obviously
Shin, baby.
we have moved away from cleanup late game team fight marksman, and we're now more into utility and somewhat lane bully marksman, right? With that being said, who is going to be a bully in comms on their team? This is a more of a fun question. Who's going to be like more commanding as a vocal person?
Short Hop. He was the shot caller of AoE. Yeah. Or Kyle now. Yeah.
I think that's the only answer. Yeah.
In terms of lane dominance, Array is already an MF enjoyer and was playing it in the spring as the early Aphelios into or early counter into Aphelios. And
but who's going to pick up
Draven's back for Wixie?
Lethality Samira.
Nah, man. The real tech is Gore Drinker Samira. Let me tell you.
Oh, Cubby.
With the new changes.
No.
Bruiser Samira.
Man, you know what I'm actually kind of sad about is that Lethality Zaya was hot fixed.
It's still getting played, and it's bad, but it's still getting played. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was about to say, like, I would love.
And no, do not be glad that got, or do not be mad that was hot fixed. That was
so broken.
Abysmal. It was so not fun to play against.
You just threw out a bunch of feathers and you just one-shot someone with blade color?
No, your Q...
Your Q was a 4-second cooldown base.
You have
cooldown reduction on top of that.
It was a 4... not only was it a 4-second cooldown, but at rank 9, it's like 275 base damage. And then you go Mirror Mana and Lethality, and it's like
so
every
stupid.
4 seconds, and the range on it's like pretty fat. Like
At that point, it's every 3 seconds.
it was dumb. It was really dumb.
So just like budget poke Varus is what I'm hearing.
It was better than
no,
Poke.
it was
better.
It was better than that.
Yeah.
It was better. Because you have
Not
your
as much
ulti, you
range, but it
can't
was
die.
way more DPS. It was bullshit.
You can't be killed.
Her win rate, or his win, yeah, her win rate
Zaya's win rate, yeah.
went up 7% in 24 hours, like before they fixed that. It was BS.
That was insane.
Yeah,
Be
but
glad that that's gone.
get that shit out of there.
Yeah, no. No.
I guess I'll just have to look up the YouTube VODs to see this monstrosity in action. That sounds so funny. Probably not fun for people.
It was abysmal. Anyway, I want to get fast food, and it's like 11:30 here, so we got to get through supports.
Yeah, all right. Let's get to support.
Solo queue?
We gotta... Yeah, so solo queue, I think this is where...
We can go through a couple pretty quick.
mhm.
Because we don't know a whole lot about Keetong. Besides the fact that
Radiance.
Keetong is a Yuumi enjoyer, a renowned Enchantress player on the ladder, and played for Radiance and currently is at Stony Brook, which is a decent collegiate team. Dark Wings is there as well.
Nice.
And he was in the Challengers Uprising qualifier with Radiance. They got knocked out in groups. He did not play with the team in Risen qualifiers, and then they disbanded, of course. That is what we knew about Keetong, or what we know. If Keetong is able to show that he can play engaged champions and like match some roam timers, I think that would be very good for him. But at the moment, he is there as a Yuumi, Karma, Lulu, Soraka, Seraphine player.
So, unironically, this is very similar to Plux's entrance in Scouting Grounds last year.
Yes.
Similar to Daption in 2020.
Yeah.
But Dapton wasn't at Scouting Grounds.
True.
Last year.
But yeah.
Both of them, really.
So,
Plux at
Keetong's
least,
winning
though,
it.
like, had a lot of competitive games, like in UPL and Risen, and, like, was playing Leona and
Yeah.
Nautilus. Not the same for Keetong.
yeah.
Right.
So we're going to have to see. That's,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Interesting.
that's what we know. So we'll see if, see what happens at Scouting Grounds.
I am a firm believer in the theory that if you play enough Enchanter games, you will get whatever rank you want. And that has never been more true than this season, where the Tank Man has been the top of the ladder. So,
Okay.
Who's that?
the Tank Man is a Sona one trick.
Smax is just really hating on Yuumi, Sona, Soraka, Janna.
I don't hate on it. It's just true.
Okay.
If you play enough games on that champion, or whatever champion you pick,
Well,
you will get whatever rank.
maybe I'll just play that champ for the last 7 days of the season, and then we'll find out.
Should. You just play, what, like 80 games of Janna? You'll get Master. Promise.
At what cost? Will you have fun?
I'm playing 80 games of Leona and flipping every single one of them at 4 minutes.
Leona?
Nice.
80 games of Leona only gets you there if you're good. And you might be good.
We're just
but
going to have to
you
find
don't-
out.
You don't have to be good to play 80 games of Janna and climb. So, and again, the point of reference here is the Tank Man. He did it. This
Twitter
is the same
support
guy,
man
by the way, that
fucking
does
on
not buy
fucking
control
hunting your
boards.
ass down, Smack. Can we get a clip of this? Can someone clip this? And
Everybody knows this. This is not like a hot take. This is just true.
man,
The Tank Man literally picks Sona every game, doesn't buy control words, and wins because he's playing Sona. That's just how it works.
damn.
Amelia's Yuumi is built different, so I'm going to have to disagree.
She is quite good at you. Anyway,
moving
that's what we know about Keetong. Let's move on to Breezy. So Breezy did get in off of solo queue, but was the support for Cloud9.
Yeah, we know more
Amateur.
about Breezy.
Yeah, this guy's pretty good. He was previously the support on 100 Thieves Academy as well. That was last year, before they brought in Poom. And, we got Choco.
We do have a dog cam for anyone that is watching on YouTube or live.
Pup cam. Oh.
That's adorable.
That's adorable. Hi, Choco.
Yeah. So Breezy seasoned competitive player, actually. And a lot of fans might remember Breezy from his stint on 100 Thieves Academy last year, where he split time with Poom towards the back half, played with them in the spring, I believe, for most of it. Overall, though, split time between like both splits. And for me, I thought that Breezy was... There are a couple things that I thought that made Breezy really good this last split. One, he was a very good laning support. Also, thanks to the fact that he enjoyed picking Leona, which is the most busted support in the game. And also, unironically, sometimes actually played main engage for that team quite often, which I think that this split, that was a big difference for the role of support, where a lot of supports went from playing main engage in the spring to secondary engage in the fall with the change in jungle. I think Breezy is a really good main engage player, and that's a lot harder to do than secondary engage. I thought his Leona was really good, and I think that he actually he lanes well. Yeah, I think that like his
wasn't he really good at Galio too?
Leona Nautilus.
Am I thinking of the right guy?
No.
Oh, Rhino was the guy who was playing Galio.
Yeah, he was the Rhino. Yeah, he was the Galio guy. But I think that Breezy had a really good split and was really slept on just because he was a known quantity, and him and Wixie were the ones doing well. I think the Wixie got a lot of that credit, and Breezy did not. I think they both deserve that credit equally. And I thought that Breezy was really good this past split, actually. So, yeah.
Breezy's really solid.
Yeah.
Thoughts, Rafa?
Dog's really cute.
Yeah.
Choco is adorable.
Choco is
big fan.
Absorbing my attention.
That's okay.
No, but I agree. I think Breezy and Wixie were the reason why Cloud9 were doing so well in the spring. I mean, that bot lane was one of the best, and that was a state where the top half of Cloud9 was struggling. I still think that XU, even if the champion pool wasn't fitting his strengths, that he still found a decent amount of games that he looked good in. But Wixie and Breezy were primarily the reason why Cloud9 Amateur during the spring won games and like did as well as, you know, getting into the tier ones to begin with. And then Cloud9 Amateur leveled up most of the top side going into fall or summer. So whereas Wixie and Breezy still maintain themselves as a really strong and dominant bot lane.
Yeah,
this is another situation where the teams will have to not pick two players on the same team because they will be too good to get it.
Yeah, I think that you want to split them up on purpose too, just to make sure that like they don't. You figure out how to cover for.
There's so much tape of these two players together. You want to get them apart.
Yeah, you want to split them up. Also, like if they cover for each other's like strengths or weaknesses, then you want to split them up.
You don't want that.
Yeah, you don't get to see like a whole fleshed out view of how these players can work on different rosters. Otherwise, it emphasizes that they need to be a package deal. Otherwise, you're not going to get as strong of an individual player. But if they can show that they can work with different players, then it helps them as individuals.
Yeah. Cool. So moving on from there, the only two players that we have left is going to be Winter and Daption.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the other example of somebody who has his duo in this tournament. Winter will need to not play with Array for the same reasons. Because he was the support for Resolve and then previously Barrage as well. And then before that, won the whole thing for Scouting Ground Circuit 2020 on Anu. Been around for quite some time. He is, with this event, the player who has been to the most Scouting Grounds.
It is his fourth Scouting Grounds, and he has qualified every single year, all 6.
Yep.
Oftentimes through playing on the competitively, instead of the solo queue ladder. That's pretty crazy.
Yes.
And because he did not attend the past 2 years, he gets to come back. Which we'll have to see what the teams think, because obviously, like, Winter definitely falls in another pool where these teams have a lot of tape on Winter and are pretty familiar with him. And so that's a little bit of more onus on Winter to prove something or to show up like off his play. But I think Resolve's renaissance in Proving Grounds, a lot of credit goes to the bot side and the fact that they changed up their strategy, and Ray and Winter started laning a little bit better and taking smarter engages across the map.
Yeah, and the engage part of that is from Winter. Another player from the support role who's really strong at the engage part of the game. Been grinding that up for a very long time. And I know from his solo queue, he's been playing mages too, which is fun. Things like the Zyra and the Xerath, and
I mean, he's
Nami
been
as well.
had the Xerath support
I know.
since, but
yeah, he's a flexible player. I don't know how viable those champions are going to be in a competitive environment, especially one that's so new. But it's valuable to have on your team.
What if Wixie and Winter are on the same team and they go Caitlyn, Xerath? Like,
it'd be good.
The stupid amount of long range. Both of their names start with W, so it's a double W for a massive for W squared. Like, come on.
Oh man, I agree. It could be fun.
Choco agrees as well, as he got up and tried to bite my hand, or what's up?
He's showing signs. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about how Resolve changed up their gameplay is that they were oftentimes playing from behind because they were just playing like Giga scaling, and that I think a lot of pressure goes on the support to cover the right lanes at the right time and also take smarter engages, because ultimately you are playing from a deficit, right?
Yeah, playing from behind as support is usually just completely doomed.
Yeah,
you can't do shit.
And I think that Winter and Resolve did a good job of turtling. They played the map very well. They were very good at seesawing your sides. And overall, like, for a player that is qualified every single year, Winter comes in as expectedly so, being rather well-rounded. And at this point, like, everyone's very familiar with Winter, and so I think that the onus is kind of like on him. Like, and I think the question that most orgs are going to have is like, all right, what else do you have to show us, right? Like, what new do you have, or how can you impress us this time around? And I think it's a little bit unfair, for anyone, but that's just the reality of the situation, and looking forward to seeing if Winter can prove that, because I think Resolve coming back throughout the year, a lot of it went towards, Winter being a very calming voice in the team, helping pull them back inside and outside of the game, and was a big part of their success. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think there is going to be a bit of turnover for the support role for Academy and LCS by nature of that as well. So I think this is a good time to have a really solid support on your team. So I think this is a good time for him to show that for Winter. And we've got Choco doing tricks for us.
I don't think they can see it, because it's like how I crop the cam, or they can like kind of see it. But anyway, as we do have Choco doing tricks.
He's just trying to get
He's very cute.
I think he wants to go potty.
Yeah, you can take him out if you need to, Rafa.
All right.
No, don't be sorry.
Winter good. Jaption very cute and wholesome. Cute. Must be protected. Both of them.
Must be protected.
Great.
All right, we got one more. We are at the 2 hour mark. We lost someone to a dog having a pee. This is what we get.
Got a casualty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait. I got it. I'm a genius. Check me out. I'll see you on the other side.
He's going to call in, and he's going to mess up the whole overlay now. Just watch.
Yeah, he probably is. He probably is.
Relax. All right.
Anyway, so Daption.
Daption, yeah.
Yep, there it is. How did I know? How did everyone know?
Look, relax. See, it's working out.
Okay. We've got the traveling Rafa for Daption.
Yeah.
All right. So Smacks, what do you have for Daption?
I have a lot for Daption. I think Daption, similar to what you said about Breezy, didn't get a lot of the credit for the Arrow lane because it was Arrow, and Arrow was the single best player on the amateur side of Proving Grounds for the entire split.
Yeah.
But I think it helped Daption improve a lot by playing with a guy like that, and helped him improve his lane quite a bit. And it just being in a system where you had laners that you can rely on and you can move on from there as well is really big. So I'm really happy that he got that opportunity. I think he made the most of it. I think he did improve a lot, specifically in the laning. And like we were talking about before, we were alluding to this, he was sort of just an enchanter player this time last year. And he's really evolved from that by being on a wild card. Actually, the only player to be on a wild card for both splits of Proving Grounds. And I think it ended up being a really, really solid year for him. And this is a good way to cap it off if he can have a really solid performance at Scouting Grounds. And then I think he will.
Mark?
I think it's a lot of pressure to be in lane with someone like Arrow and his pedigree, right? And I think you have to deal with the constant scrutiny of people looking at you as a support and saying, okay, but are you really that good, or are you getting carried by Arrow buff, you know? And I think as soon as we saw Challengers Uprising Grand Finals of Wildcard against Zeus and Daption's game-winning counter engages, I think if by then that narrative didn't get shut down, then you're fucking stupid. Because Daption saved and clutched out a lot of fights that looked super doomed for wildcard in the games where Zeus actually was starting to play really well. Because Pocket Rhino was kind of the reason why a lot of those fights were potentially going to be really strong for Zeus. But then Daption saves them. And I think Proving Grounds, we still got a chance to see him. I think, to be fair, there was a couple of moments near the tail end where Daption looked shaky compared to the rest of his Proving Grounds dominance, but he was very instrumental to Wildcard's Grand Slam of winning every single Tier 2 event in Proving Grounds. And that's not a fluke.
Yeah. I agree that I think the Daption, it was like almost hard to rate Daption just because like Arrow, they bodied everyone, right? And it's pretty easy to credit Arrow to that, considering that, you know, it's a former LCK champion and LCS MVP who was playing really well and playing at that level. But I think that Daption, like, I think that in this, like, what I was talking about, like, with support meta changing, with supports going from main engage to secondary engage, actually, I liked Daption a lot more on main engage. And I think it took him a little bit longer to figure out secondary engage, as weird as that seems. And I think that he got on, like, he caught on to that, like, a lot better towards the back half of the summer split. And I think that a lot of that was just because he just became this recon god. Like, his recon just was really good. Come Proving Grounds. But yeah, it's weird because like he came out in spring and was like the Rel God, and then he was like popping off on Nautilus, and then he was playing fine for like all of like Proving Grounds. I mean, they were winning everything, right? But it wasn't until like the main events of Proving Grounds where like Daption, where I was like, oh, Daption's like playing really good again, right? I think that he was a big part of them taking the 5th, 6th finish. So yeah.
What is it about being named Sam and being really fucking good at Recon? That's just.
I do enjoy some solid Recon gameplay. That is my boy.
Yeah.
Are there other examples? Just me and Daption?
We could ask Sam Price how good his Recon is.
I think maybe he plays Recon.
I know he's the top lane, but you know he does play he plays a mean Quinn, so maybe being
that champion's cursed, man. But I love playing it.
I was at one point a Quinn one trick, believe it or not.
Good for you. Just make sure no one else in the game has fun.
That was no. That was before the rework. I played her as a bot laner, and that was when you turned into the bird.
Yeah.
Oh, when you got to be Valor?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I forgot about those days.
You don't get to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were just a melee champion. It was great.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Rafa,
yeah, that's all.
Do you have a support question for us before we wrap? Or give closing thoughts and then wrap.
Support question. I think support, looking at what Worlds meta gave us, how the Worlds meta in one patch developed, and how we shifted from, it has to be enchanters, it only has to be enchanters, and then like engage supports kind of came back in, and now that we're getting inklings of potentially some mages being strong, what is going to be a spicy pick from the support role and for each of the players, 4 players? Like what is like a...
Can I just give like 2 overarching picks that I think that we'll see?
Sure.
Zillion and Zyra. I think both of those are outside the meta and are actually, or were outside the meta, but are actually decent on this patch that Mike had played. Mm-hmm. Zillion obviously made a big impact at Worlds, but yeah. I think Zyra is also playable at the moment. I really want to see like Breezy, Winter, or Daption pull out Zyra and just wreck house. You can shit on some lines for that pick.
Caitlyn Zyra.
Wixie's a really good Caitlyn player.
Yep, that's
yeah.
I think I'm gonna take your question and do the opposite with it, and I'm gonna say that even though Yuumi is turbo broken, we're not gonna see her at all, because she's just not worth seeing you play her at a tournament like Scouting Grounds. It just doesn't do anything for your brand. It doesn't do anything for you as a player. It doesn't prove anything at a tournament like this. Maybe over a longer span of games, something like Yuumi would be fine to play, but it's just not important to play here. So I do think Yuumi, if your intent is to win, then Yuumi is good. But if your intent as a support is to show that you're a good support and that you can compete as a support for Academy and maybe LCS, you shouldn't be picking.
I think you got to pick whatever you look good on. So like someone like Ketong, if he wants to play Yuumi and if he can make that look good, go for it. It's definitely harder to make look good. I'll give you that.
It's very, very difficult to be like, oh, this Yuumi player just won us the game.
But you can show some things. Like if you are able to like sync up with your jungler to like go contest a Rift Herald at 8 minutes, like that was a strategy that like we didn't see at Worlds, but it was rumored in scrims was Karthus Yuumi bot, where you just leave Karthus to solo die bot and Yuumi would just go to join jungler and he could still impact the fight and he would still absorb the wave. Stuff like that. So it's interesting, but
I think the principle still applies to like Ezreal Ziggs, right? So
yeah, I mean, I agree with you though. It's hard to look good on
Zimmy or on
Yuumi. Yeah,
I think hitting skill shots is important.
It's harder to look good on Yuumi for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've gone through all 20 players. We've gone through Rafa's sweet questions, and it only took us 2.5 hours.
2:15.
You know what my original
We're at
support
2:15.
question was, and I had to change?
What was it?
Who's the cutest support going? Just kidding.
Rafa's Daption biased. Introducing him as the wholesome.
I was gonna say anything.
Oh, sure. That's how you get around that one.
I wanted to put you two.
Introduce a player as the most wholesome boy.
This is a pointed question.
Dude,
we don't know what
just go look at Daption's like fucking interview, man, and how he was talking about like
it's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, I'm not talking about like looks. I'm talking about like personality. Like Daption was just so humble, and he was like saying he was the weakest player, and it's like, man, you just made some sick counter engages that won the game. How are you gonna call yourself the weakest player, bro? Come on, dude.
I think the support pool that is being sent between those three players, I think that they were hands down the three strongest supports that we had. Outside of maybe Rhino. But I think Rhino's good, but we won't get into that. But I think it's a decent crop, and I'm hoping that Keaton can also like step up and rival. But yeah, any closing thoughts about Scouting Grounds?
Go watch Scouting Grounds.
Go watch Scouting Grounds.
Only be on one day.
Yep, it'll be the 13th, so you can watch it then, and then after that, you can watch the Arcane episodes, 4 through 6. So,
and then you know what you should do is you should get up 10 hours earlier. Never mind.
If you live in Singapore, then you can watch we can watch some Wild Rift.
Go watch Wild Rift, baby.
If not, you should watch the VODs. Live because.
Yeah. Besides that, support these guys. It's a bummer that we don't get more of the event streamed, but the more support that you give it, maybe Riot will change their mind in the future. So yeah, and besides that, if you guys enjoy the show, want to support us, drop us a follow. And go follow these two guys too, because they can't talk about it now, but they've got some big announcements coming. So at SmacksCast and at RafaCasts. So yeah, drop us a follow, wherever you find us. We are on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, and more. YouTube and more. See, Smacks, this is why you do this.
This is why
I tried.
This.
Yeah.
You miss Google and Twitch, but that's okay, because we're on Twitch right now, and Google is a search engine. So we will catch you later. I don't know when we'll be on this again.
Maybe some wrap-up interviews after Scouting Grounds for PG Pod, but a lot of people were taking breaks and vacations, so we weren't able to catch up with everyone.
Off-season is a wild time. So it's completely excusable. If Proving Grounds is still going strong in 2022, and we're still doing what we're doing in the Proving Grounds and Academy space, and we'll be back then. But we'll just have to see. It's a couple of months away. So this has been an awesome year of Proving Grounds Pod and Raising an A, and thank you to everyone who was on the show with us, and thank you to these guys for buying into my crazy ideas, and having their own crazy ideas that I can buy into. It's a fun cycle. It helps me relive my nostalgia of the Cup desk days, and it's just a great time. So thank you to everyone for tuning in, and we will see you when we see you, whether that be soon or in 2022. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.